everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. This is Kathy. I'm back with another card for my Valentine's Day series for 2019. I'll be using the Perfect Blend and Coffee Break stamp sets from Honeybee Stamps. And I started out by first creating a mask using the Stacking Hearts Honey Cuts, and I just cut it out of a piece of scratch paper and then used two-way glue on the back. I let it dry before I placed it down on my cardstock because it becomes a repositionable adhesive when you do that. I arranged a variety of the coffee sentiments and a couple of the coffee beans from the Perfect Blend stamp set onto an acrylic block. Then I just kind of randomly stamped it using Versamark ink to just create kind of a background within the heart mask. The cardstock that I'm using is 100-pound Desert Storm cardstock. It's Nina. And there I had to fill in a few empty spots, so I just peeled one of the coffee beans off the bigger block and just filled it in. Then I removed the mask, and with some detail white embossing powder, I heat embossed it so that it would be nice and shiny. I wasn't too worried about embossing powder getting on the outer edge of the heart. Wasn't worried about the stamp getting outside of the heart either. I knew that I was going to end up cutting that panel down, of course, with a stitched rectangle die. So after I coated it with the embossing powder, I heat set it until it was nice and shiny and melted. And I have so many videos ready to go. My brain has been in maximum overdrive, and I've kind of been lagging at getting the videos up because our dishwasher went out a couple of weeks ago, and for whatever reason, shopping for new appliances kind of freaks me out. And the fact that there was water on the floor and under the floor really didn't help matters, because I had flashbacks of when a water supply line broke in my store and flooded the store. And by flooding, I mean I stepped into water that was ankle deep. Okay, so back to the card. After I had heat embossed it and it had cooled off, I put the mask back over it, and I used two tiny pieces of painter's tape just to make sure that it was going to hold in place. And then I did some ink blending with Abandoned Coral, Candied Apple, and Fired Brick Distress Oxide inks. So yeah, the store flooded. I was in ankle deep water, so I was having flashbacks. I was lucky enough that our neighbor was able to come over and help my husband remove the old dishwasher, but it took me a week before I finally picked one out and had it delivered, and then we finally just had it installed this last week. So now that that's all taken care of, my brain can get back onto track with creating, which is another thing, is that it's been in overdrive because I have so many ideas for Valentine's Day cards and I cannot seem to stamp fast enough. Okay, so what I did was, after I did all the ink blending, I used a paper towel just to buff it off a little bit, and then I blasted it with the heat tool just to make sure that all that ink was dry. Next, I moved on to stamping the coffee cup, and I stamped it twice, and I used, what did I use? I used dark brown ink, chocolate brown hybrid ink from My Favorite Things, because I wanted to stay in the lines with the craft background and kind of have this card be more neutral, more masculine with the color scheme, which was a challenge for me not to use a bunch of pink because I love pink and hearts for Valentine's Day. Anyway, I stamped the coffee cup twice because I plan on doing a little bit of paper piecing. Colored it up pretty quick and easy using E40s, and on one of them I only color the saucer and the spoon, and the other one I actually color the cup, the coffee, and then the heart I actually do puffy embossing powder. So yes, with all these ideas, I can't seem to stamp fast enough and get the cards done. Well, actually, I can stamp fast enough, get the cards done. It's the videos and the voiceovers and the blog posts, because, well, as I've mentioned before, I have a difficult time with voiceovers because I have so many that need to be done. There might be a couple of videos where I'm just going to be playing music like this one while I finish up the coloring. After I was done with the coloring, I cut them apart because I wanted to make the heart and the cup of coffee be kind of foamy looking. And I figured that if I cut them apart, then I could work on one while that one was drying, cooling off. I could cut out the other. Anyway, what I'm doing is I am applying basically its glossy accents just to the heart. And then I took a nice sharp dental tool. Again, you could use a toothpick or anything else that you have that's a craft pick that's sharp, just to kind of draw little swirls within the glossy accents. I coated it with puff embossing powder. That is from Hero Arts, and I know that Hero Arts actually has a kit where you can get the glossy accents and the puff embossing powder in one thing to do this. But if you have glossy accents, all you need to do then would be order the puffy embossing powder. Anyway, once I had it in there coated really well with the embossing powder, I heat set it. And the reason I used the puff embossing powder is because it bubbles up and puffs up really quite nicely. I set that aside and started to fussy cut the other coffee cup. And there are coordinating dies for this set, and I don't have them. And I don't know why I don't have them. I really should have ordered them because apparently there's a die specifically to cut out the top of that coffee cup. But that's neither here nor there. Scissors work. Once that was cut out, I did go around the edges with a brush tip marker. If you do this, you want to make sure that it is a water-based marker, especially if you've colored with Copics, because if you use your black Copic marker, there's a chance that it could bleed in and mess up all of your coloring, and that is probably not something that you'd want to do. So that one was cut out, and then I just move on and cut out the other part of the coffee cup. Once I was done cutting out the second part of the coffee cup, I do the same thing with the brush tip marker and just go around the edges really quickly. The next thing I did was I stamped the sentiment, which there in the Perfect Blend stamp set, there's a bunch of separate sentiments and you can kind of piece them all together, which is what I did, and I used my stamp platform to make sure that they were somewhat straight, which they're really not, but that's okay. Stamped it using Versamark ink and coated it with detail embossing powder this time to make sure that I got all the nice detail in that really fine font. Heat set it with my heat gun, ran it through my die cut machine with a fishtail banner, and then inked the edges of it with the Fired Brick Distress Oxide ink. Then it was pretty much just putting all the layers together. So I had used a stitched rectangle die to cut out that panel, adhered that to a side folding red A2 sized card, added some foam tape to the coffee part of the coffee cup and added that to the front of the card, and after that adhered the sentiment strip with foam tape, and that finishes up the card for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Everything that I've used will be linked down below as well as over on my blog. I've got lots more videos, like I said, so I'll be back real soon. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.